Every year, American drivers lose over $23 billion to rust-related damage. However, as de-icing brine becomes more popular, this figure is poised to increase significantly. In this video, I'll reveal 13 things you need to start doing so that you'll never have to repair rust. I'll be debunking common myths, exposing manufacturing secrets, and discussing fringe science that could save you a fortune. Let's dive in. Number 13. Aftermarket rust-proofing for new cars. It's not often that Consumer Reports is wrong about something. But when they said a few years ago that new cars don't need undercarriage rust-proofing, they missed the mark. While it is true that new cars come with corrosion protection, this isn't something you can rely on. The first reason is that manufacturers often make mistakes. And yes, that includes reliable brands. In 2023, Honda recalled 500,000 CR-Vs over an issue that can cause frames to rust. Subaru, General Motors, Toyota, and Mitsubishi have also recalled nearly 1 million cars for similar problems. While the recalls have been for cars registered in the Salt Belt, that's just a smokescreen. As long as a car is made of steel, it is prone to rust. It's just a matter of time. That brings us to the second reason. Rust protection from the manufacturer is still no match for road salt. It will eventually lose out. That is why you need to be proactive with aftermarket rust proofing. There are two types of this. The first is an annual or biannual treatment with an oil-based spray. The second is a permanent undercoating. This is only recommended for brand new cars because, as the name implies, it doesn't come off. That also means that if there was any rust hidden underneath, it will keep growing until it wrecks the frame from the inside. There is one thing that Consumer Reports got right. Don't buy rust proofing from a dealer. They'll charge you $400 to $800 for undercarriage rust proofing, which is twice as much as what other mechanics charge. But do you know the worst part? They don't always do it. Take your car to a trusted mechanic instead. If your car isn't brand new, you still have plenty of ways to protect it from rust, and it begins with the next rule. Number 12. Stop ignoring your undercarriage. Did you know that cars corrode 3 times quicker when they aren't washed versus washing just once a week during winter? That's the difference between cars that last 5 years versus 15 years rust-free. However, while washing the body of your car is important, the real danger is where you can't see. If you live in an area with a lot of road salt or by the coast, you must wash the undercarriage at least once a week. That brine mixture of road salt and ice causes steel to rust 10 times faster than plain water. This brine slushy also takes a lot longer to dry off, which keeps steel surfaces wetter for longer. So, even if you have applied rust-proofing oils to your undercarriage, the prolonged wetness will eventually wash them off. That is why you need to wash your undercarriage regularly, and I mean at home. The standard undercarriage spray at the car wash is often a low-pressure, wide-angle spray that is too timid for caked-on salt. Still, this is better than nothing and will extend your undercarriage life by another 2 to 3 years. But here's my pro tip. Get an undercarriage pressure washer. For less than $30, you can get a decent washer that squirts out water at 4,000 psi. Use this every time you go through heavy snow or drive near the coast. It only takes a few minutes, but it can stretch your car for decades. However, even undercarriage cleaning won't matter if you ignore the next tip. Number 11. Unclog the hidden water drains. One of the leading sources of rust is a feature in cars that most drivers don't even know exists. I'm talking, of course, about the hidden water drains. You might not have noticed little holes in the sunroof, windshield, gas tank, and at the bottom of all doors. Every time it rains or you wash your car, the drains divert water away from metal cavities. But every once in a while, dirt, Leaves and debris get into these tiny holes and clog the drains. When this happens, the steel stays wet for a long time, which is the #1 cause of corrosion. The worst part is you won't even notice the damage until it's too late. Vehicles with clogged sunroofs have 4 times higher corrosion rates than cars with clean drains. That is why you need to clear the drains at least twice a year. Fortunately, this is pretty simple. All you need is weed eater string or some other thin, flexible string. For the sunroof, you'll need to pour a bit of water into each hole, then look at the bottom of the car to make sure it drains out. If any hole appears clogged, push the weed eater string as far as it can go, then test it out again. For the bottom of the doors, push your key into each hole to make sure it's clear. You can then spray some water into the holes and watch it flow back out. In some cases, we've had to drill extra holes or enlarge the weep holes to get the water out. Also, check the drain in the trunk, where the spare tire is, and the drain next to the gas cap. Later in the video, I'll reveal some tips on where and how you park that can minimize clogged drains and rust. Next is a product that is a miracle in a spray can. Number 10, the magic of lanolin. If you drive a used car, then the permanent rust-proofing solutions we discussed at the beginning won't help. That's because permanent coatings like POR15 and Z-Bart are unforgiving. If there is even the tiniest sliver of rust underneath, it will just keep spreading like a virus. What you should use instead is a DIY sprayer like Fluid Film or Surface Shield. Personally, I prefer Surface Shield, but they both do the same thing. These are lanolin-based protectants. Lanolin is essentially wool grease, and it is a water repellent. For rust to happen, you need water, oxygen, and an accelerant like salt. Technically, you don't need the accelerant. Anyway, by repelling water, lanolin prevents rust formations. If you are able to get underneath your car at home, you can do this yourself. Spray this on the entire undercarriage. Leave no bolt dry. Of course, you need to clean your car before application and let it dry. Don't spray rubber components and the brakes. It is always best to use a professional for the first application. Watch how they do it, and you can then carry on. Remember to reapply this every 2 to 3 years. If you live in the salt belt, do this annually. Make sure you get inside the frame rails, rocker panels, and into the wheel wells. Get into all the spaces rust likes to hide. Another liquid you can use to fight rust is WD-40. Watch this video to know how. Tricks with WD-40 that save you thousands in repairs. Now, it's time to bust a myth that costs drivers $3,000 in repairs. Number 9. Stop heating up your garage. A popular myth is that cold weather causes corrosion. It does not. What causes corrosion during winter is the road salts and not the cold. Various studies have proven that the rate of corrosion doubles with every 10 degrees Celsius, about 18 degrees Fahrenheit, increase in temperature. So, that means when you use a heated garage, you're actually killing your car. Heat acts as an accelerant for moisture and oxygen to cause your car to corrode faster. Add salt on top of that, then you're more than tripling the rate of rust. When you bring in the car from the cold, the frozen ice melts, which causes the salt to spread more easily. Ironically, this process causes salt to enter cavities it wouldn't have if it had remained frozen. And yes, this means it's better to park outside than in a warm garage. What you need instead is a cool, dry, and well-ventilated garage. If you must heat it up, you should wash the undercarriage first. You should also install an industrial fan and a dehumidifier. This will keep the air moving while your car stays dry. Still, this is a bit risky. But if you don't mind risk and you're interested in fringe science, you're going to love the next tip. Number 8. Cathodic protection. Have you ever seen small electronic devices that claim to prevent rust by sending a weak electrical current through your car's body? Well, these snake oil-looking devices are actually based on a proven industrial technology called cathodic protection. This is what is used to keep ships from corroding. Think about the amount of time these giant steel contraptions spend in seawater without even the tiniest bit of rust. Here is a brief explanation of the science. Corrosion happens when steel loses electrons to water and oxygen. This means that your car becomes the anode, which is similar to the negative terminal of a battery. Cathodic protection turns the steel of your car into a cathode, which gains electrons. A sacrificial anode is then connected to your car, which will rust instead. When done properly, cathodic protection reduces rust by up to 95%. However, in order for this to work, the car has to remain connected to the electrolyte. For example, ships are always in water, and oil pipelines are always in the soil. The closest we have for cars is using galvanized steel, which uses a zinc coating as the anode. That is why modern cars have much better rust protection than old ones. If you own a classic car and have deep pockets, consider galvanizing the chassis. So, to answer the question at the beginning, those electronic rust inhibitors don't actually work. While we wait for technology to catch up, there are much cheaper ways to prevent rust. Number 7. Don't let rubber floor mats betray you. Did you know that buying rubber floor mats can cost you up to $3,000? No, not the mats themselves, but the damage they inflict. I've seen so many floor pans consumed by rust while the rest of the car looked immaculate. Why? Because the owners didn't know how car carpets work. Many people use all-weather impermeable mats to protect the carpets from dirt, mud, and snow. However, when you hop in your car during winter and the snow and salt melt, they don't stay on the rubber mats. Instead, a lot of that moisture seeps below the mat and onto the carpet. Unfortunately, rubber mats also protect carpets from something else: air. Without air, the moisture on the carpet won't evaporate. Instead, it will go below the carpet and into the floor pan, where it will cause corrosion. However, this will be much worse if you don't use rubber mats. So, what's the solution? Whenever you get home after a wet drive, remove the rubber mats. Make sure the carpet gets dry before the next ride. Use an industrial fan if you must. This simple habit takes a few seconds, but it will save you thousands. Later in the video, I'll share another surprising accessory that traps rust. But next, we have another cheap habit that will save you a fortune. Number 6, learn how to spot and stop it early. According to AAA, 70% of American drivers are at risk for costly, dangerous rust repair. This is due to the large amounts of road salt used all across the country. While cars under 10 years old are less likely to have rust, it's never too early to become a rust detective. You're looking for 3 types of rust. The first is surface rust, which is on the very top layer of the metal and is easy to fix. Clean the spot, sandpaper it down to the bare metal, then apply a rust inhibitor primer. The second type of rust is scale, which is rough and flaky and has started to bubble the paint. This is a lot tougher to deal with DIY and can cost up to a few $1,000s to repair. The third is penetrating rust, which is when the corrosion has gone all the way through and created a hole. Every time you wash your car, look for signs of these 3. Also, keep an eye out for chipped or scratched paint. This is how moisture is able to penetrate the anti-rust coating and begin to wreak havoc. If you see a chip, clean it up and apply touch-up paint immediately. Dealers often have the exact color to match your car. If you spot surface rust, you'll need to use a rust converter on the exposed metal before you apply the touch-up paint to seal the area. This will prevent surface rust from turning into something much worse. So, unless you have $10,000 or are ready for a new car, always inspect your car for rust. We'll explore this further later in the video. But before then, number 5, pick your parking spot carefully. Most people don't think too deeply about where they park. But do you know that choosing the right spot can save you an average of $4,000? In summer, parking directly under the sun exposes the car to UV rays, which degrade the protective coating. If you don't paint over it, your car will eventually develop surface rust, which can progress to the nasty stuff. Painting your car alone can cost you between $1,000 and $5,000. If you don't paint your car, you're then risking rust, which costs a lot more to fix. But even if your car doesn't rust, cars in bad paint condition lose up to 20% of their value. Another bad place to park during summer is on unpaved surfaces like grass, gravel, or dirt. As water evaporates, it will keep your undercarriage wet. This is particularly bad in the morning with dew on the grass. The best place to park at home in any weather is under a carport. This is better than parking in a garage because it blocks snow, rain, and UV rays while keeping your car ventilated. If you want to park outside, there's one thing you need to do first. Number 4, use salt neutralizers for brine. Since 2012, many US states have been using a combination of road salt and de-icing brine to melt snow. While this has helped improve driving conditions, it also costs drivers a whopping $3 billion in rust damage annually. Most of this damage is largely due to de-icing salts. This is often sodium chloride mixed with water, but it can also contain calcium chloride and beet juice additives. Unlike road salts that bounce off cars, de-icing brine is like a slushie that sticks to the undercarriage. Because de-icing brine is kicked up by car tires, it gets flung into the deep recesses of the car. Unfortunately, it can even get into holes that your rust-proofing oils can't reach. That is why you need to be proactive and neutralize the salt before your drive. The best way to do this is with a salt neutralizing wash. These products use neutralizing agents and surfactants to target salt molecules. Combine it with the pressure washer we discussed in number 12, and your car will get improved rust protection. But while you target salt from underneath, there's another secret location where rust multiplies unseen. Number 3, inspect the car battery tray. When was the last time you inspected the car battery holder for rust? Even though every experienced driver checks for corrosion on battery terminals often, most never look beneath the surface. However, these checks are vital because car batteries contain sulfuric acid, which is very corrosive. When the battery leaks as it ages, the acid can spill onto the tray. The corrosion will eat away at the paint, then the metal, then any surrounding components. While this is unlikely to cause serious damage to the car, it weakens the battery tray. If it snaps while you're driving, you could be looking at a nasty accident. The easy way to keep an eye on this is to inspect the battery every time you get an oil change. If you notice any corrosion on the terminals, clean them with baking soda. You should then lift the battery to make sure there's no damage to the tray. Also, add grease to the battery terminals to prevent future corrosion. This is another cheap way to prevent expensive repairs, just like the next trick. Number 2, go old school with wax. When it comes to rust protection, newer is definitely better. High-tech ceramic coatings can protect your car from rust for up to a decade. However, they are a bit pricey. If you can't afford to spend $500 to protect your paint from rust, use good old-fashioned car wax. Carnauba wax remains one of the best ways to protect your car from UV damage and rust. Wax creates a hydrophobic barrier that causes water to bead and roll off the surface. It also protects your car from bird droppings, acid rain, and other contaminants that can degrade paint. Unfortunately, the car wax washed off after some time. For best results, you need to wax your car every 3 to 6 months. However, it is still cheaper than ceramic coating, and to be honest, it makes your car look much nicer. Regardless of the method you use, there is still one more thing you need to do. Number 1. Schedule an annual rust checkup. If you live in the Salt Belt or drive an old car, this final piece of advice can save you thousands of dollars. Once a year, get your car on a lift and do a thorough inspection. Ideally, you should get a professional to do this for you, but you can do it yourself. Start by inspecting the undercarriage. You're going to need a bright light and a screwdriver. Pay special attention to the frame rails, suspension mounting points, the floor pans, and the areas behind the wheels. Also, look for any flaking or bubbling paint underneath the door frames. If you find any signs of rust, deal with it immediately. That brings us to the end of this video. As you have seen, protecting your car from rust doesn't cost a lot of money, but it saves a lot of money. While it will take a bit of time to wash, coat, and inspect your car, it is absolutely worth it. While protecting your car from rust is important, it won't matter if you don't take good care of the car. If you want your car to last for over a decade without major repairs, watch this. 17 car maintenance secrets mechanics don't want you to know.